So it's been about a month since The Last of Us 2 came out. I'm sure a lot of you are aware about the massive outrage over this game. What this video essay is going to serve as is a general response to a lot of the criticisms, and it centres around a lot of what anti-SJWs are saying about characters like Abby, Ellie, and Dina and Joel. But before we get started, if you have not played this game, if you have not had it spoiled for you and you plan to play it, please click off the video right now. Not only click off the video, please delete your history so your search feed and your recommended doesn't get filled up with Last of Us Part 2 spoilers. Trust me, you're gonna wanna go into this game without knowing anything, just like I did. And before we get into the video essay, if you like my content, please leave a like on the video, maybe subscribe to the channel, check out my Patreon and WordPress in the description, and maybe follow me on social media at TheQuartering. I have always liked Naughty Dog games. Like many 20-somethings in the UK, I of course grew up with the original Crash Bandicoot trilogy. I also enjoyed the Jak and Daxter series, which showed Naughty Dog's desire to go into a darker direction. The original Uncharted on the PS3 blew my teenage mind with its revolutionary animation and graphics, and this kept getting better with each entry, which upped the scale and insanity. The original Last of Us marked the studio's entry into a dark, gritty, and mature world, telling the story of Joel and Ellie, a man who lost everything on Outbreak Day. Joel develops a father-daughter relationship with Ellie in an America ravaged by the cordyceps pandemic. It showed Naughty Dog were the top dogs at writing and character development. The Uncharted series also learned some lessons from Joel and Ellie's tale, with Uncharted 4: A Thief's End being a more serious story of family and marriage. It was my favourite of all Naughty Dog's games. That was until The Last of Us 2 released last month.
I was supposed to take her to the Fireflies and walk away. You go halfway across the country with someone. She needed her immunity to mean something. Maybe I was starting to buy into that old cure business. Maybe I just wanted to do right by her.
An absolutely gut-wrenching tale of revenge and loss that plays with your emotional state in a way few video games have ever done. For me, it is one of the best video game narratives of all time, and I feel will stand as one of the finest games this generation had to offer. Perhaps only the writing teams at CD Projekt Red and Rockstar Games can rival what Druckmann and his teams have created here. However, The Last of Us Part 2 released at a time where anti-SJWs thrive online. Led by reactionary white men like TheQuartering or Geeks and Gamers, they are people who claim to be fighting against a leftist agenda in entertainment, but in reality this is just a smokescreen to push their own toxic right-wing views that seek to fight back against the march of progress and civil rights for women, minorities, and the LGBT community. This video will assess and analyse the ridiculous controversy that resulted from Naughty Dog's narrative decisions with The Last of Us Part 2.
Dina. Is she your girlfriend?
No. No, that was just one kiss. It doesn't mean anything. I don't know why she did that.
But you do like her.
So stupid.
Look, I have no idea what that girl's intentions are, but I do know that she would be lucky to have you.
Joel Miller is the main protagonist of The Last of Us. A complicated man, Joel lost his daughter Sarah on Outbreak Day in June 2013. The game takes place 20 years later, with a Joel that is clearly still broken up and bitter over the loss of his only child. Joel is no angel, and it's hinted at regularly throughout the game that he has done some awful stuff to survive. The world of The Last of Us is just shades of grey, and there's no absolute morality. Nevertheless, the people closest to him both reference what he has done, including Tess and Tommy.
What are we doing here? This is not us.
What do you know about us? About me?
I know that you are smarter than this.
Really? Guess what? We're shitty people, Joel. It's been that way for a long time.
No, we are survivors.
This is our chance.
It is over, Tess!
You want some gear? Sure. But I ain't taking that girl off your hands.
This is how you gonna repay me, huh?
Repay you?
For all those goddamn years I took care of us.
Took care. That's what you call it? I got nothing but nightmares from those years.
You survived because of me.
It wasn't worth it.
From the player's point of view, the most questionable thing we see Joel do is in the last act of the game. Ellie is immune to the cordyceps virus, and Joel was originally tasked with bringing her to the Fireflies to work on a cure. The Fireflies want to restore the old way of control in America and see a vaccine as part of their approach to this. Joel and Ellie nearly drown before they are found by Firefly soldiers in Salt Lake City. Without being awoken, Ellie is put on the operating table, with the medical team immediately attempting to carry out the procedure to operate on Ellie's brain to remove the virus for study. This will kill her. Upon hearing the news, Joel rampages through the hospital, killing multiple Fireflies and butchering the medical team. Before leaving, he kills Ellie's mum's friend, Marlene, to stop the Fireflies from following him.
Wait! Let me go! Please.
You just come after her.
He has seemingly doomed humanity just to fill the void left by the death of his daughter. Joel then lies to Ellie about her not being special, saying multiple people are immune, and this lie goes on for years. He is clearly a man on borrowed time, which catches up to him in part 2. The head doctor he murdered was the father of Abby, one of the new protagonists in part 2. With a team of ex-Fireflies, she arrives in Jackson and brutally murders Joel with a golf club in front of Ellie.
Joel, get up. Joel, fucking get up. Please stop. Please don't shoot. Joel, please get up! No!
This narrative decision sets up the game nicely, and the hard-hitting scene makes you deeply want vengeance on Abby and a team of ex-Fireflies. It makes you blind with rage as Ellie rampages across Seattle, brutally killing anyone involved in Joel's death. Unfortunately, many people did not get to experience this without spoilers. Leaks in April 2020 exposed that Joel would not feature as prominently as expected in Part 2. Allegations began circulating that Neil Druckmann, the creator of the franchise, had betrayed the fans, as much of the marketing for the game had been altered to make it appear that Joel featured prominently, seemingly taking inspiration from the Metal Gear Solid 2 marketing campaign. The Last of Us had been ruined because, according to expert anti-SJW fans, who coincidentally did neither create or write for The Last of Us like Druckmann did, the franchise was actually about Ellie and Joel's journeys and bond. This was made even worse for the reactionary crowd due to the main duo on Ellie's campaign being her and her new girlfriend Dina. It had been clearly established since the 2014 Last of Us DLC Left Behind that Ellie was bisexual, likely to be a lesbian, with her and Riley sharing a kiss towards the end of the expansion. This was expanded upon in some of the 2018 marketing that showed Dina and Ellie kiss as well. The marketing campaign had hinted that Ellie was on a revenge mission, but it made it seem like it was because Dina had been killed, not Joel. This led to many commentators to declare that The Last of Us had gone woke, despite the original game featuring 2 gay characters in Bill and Ellie. Some of the reactionaries like Geeks and Gamers, Laura Chen and No BS made multiple videos criticising the leaks and saying that the SJW agenda had been exposed.
I have a different standard for what I like to call good entertainment. I like things, that are relatable, that make me laugh or cry, depending what it is. I like a compelling, thought-provoking story, that kind of stuff. But yeah, no, for these people, diversity, subverting expectations. And what's so interesting about this is that a lot of the time when these studios pander to activists, it blows up in their face, because these types of activists that they're trying to court are the types of people, they're Karens, right? They're never going to be satisfied, and they're always going to demand more from you, and it will never be enough. So why these studios even try to pander to them time after time, I still don't quite understand, but whatever, it's their prerogative, they can do what they want.
But as we've been getting more information about this game, it has been pretty clear that it's going to be bogged down by what almost everything that gets popular gets bogged down by: identity politics and SJW nonsense, because this is what they do. If something is popular, if something has a platform, they want to interject that into whatever it is that has the platform. We've seen this over and over again from movies, we've seen it in certain games, and now we're seeing it potentially within The Last of Us 2.
It's not like people like this don't exist, and we shouldn't react to it immediately and say, oh my god, get woke, go broke. But the context of The Last of Us has been a series of exceedingly woke decisions, including the studio themselves, Naughty Dog, so I guess I can say I'm not surprised. So on top of the fact that the storyline is woke trash, apparently, it's also bad on top of that, and the woke people that they were pandering to are pissed that Naughty Dog was crunching their employees and seemed to be totally fine with the leak. And to further illustrate the woke backfire, all you need to do is look at Twitter and type The Last of Us trans, and you'll find a ton of outrage.
It is obvious these people are either motivated by bigotry or are trying to ride the wave of toxicity they cultivate on the internet, as The Last of Us has always been woke in terms of LGBT representation. The Last of Us 2 not only features a gay love scene, but also shows the blossoming of a gay relationship that results in the pair living in an idyllic homestead with a newborn baby. In my opinion, it is done very well, and it's one of the better representations of gay characters in entertainment. But to the reactionaries, this does not matter. Joel was killed, and now they're being forced to play a story about a gay couple on a revenge mission. This is clearly Naughty Dog just selling out to the SJW agenda, despite establishing their gay characters all the way back in 2013.
Abby, when the moon comes
I
out...
found Joel's brother. He's at a settlement out in Wyoming.
How do you know that?
The Fireflies who served with him got picked up at the wall.
I thought he quit like a decade ago.
Yeah.
So, have these guys heard from him since?
It's a lead.
As I mentioned in part 1, the biggest controversy that anti-SJW reactionaries kicked up a fuss about was around the character of Abby. Of course, Abby being the one to kill Joel is the primary reason they hate her, but they also hate the decisions made in the game around her. Abby was originally shown off years before the game released. Many speculated that the ripped, muscular woman was Ellie's estranged mother. However, the April leaks revealed this was not the case. In fact, she was a new character who was going to murder Joel. This was already outrageous to reactionaries, but what made it even worse is that they thought that Naughty Dog were putting an obviously strong female character as part of a male-hating political agenda, but rumours about her actually being transgender also muddied the waters. To be clear, Abby was born female and is a straight woman, but this didn't stop it from being utilised as fuel for the anti-SJW fire. Now what shocked these reactionaries even more is that you actually had to play half the game as Abby. You experienced the 3-day Seattle story structure from her point of view, while seeing flashbacks of her past with her father, before he was murdered by Joel, and her relationship with ex-lover Owen. Personally, I think Abby is the best character in the franchise, and I love what a bold choice Naughty Dog has made in having me play as her. I spent all my time with Ellie just wanting to find her and make her suffer, even more so when she shot Jesse in the face without hesitation. But that speaks to the remarkable characterization. Many of these anti-SJWs complained about Abby's frame and her physique. There are obvious benefits to being very strong in the post-apocalypse. If I joined a militia in this world with a free gym, you bet I'd be chowing down on those sweet burritos and bench pressing every spare moment I had, like Abby obviously does. However, I want to outline why it makes complete narrative sense despite reactionaries believing it was solely a choice because of feminist politics. Chronologically, we first meet Abby when she is a lot younger, exploring the wilderness with her father. She has an athletic build with obvious muscle, but this is nothing compared to what she eventually becomes. It is clear that she has bulked up to confront Joel. Think about it, she has never properly interacted with Joel, she just knows him as a smuggler. He brutally murdered her father and dozens of Firefly soldiers. Even in the aquarium when she's relatively slender, she is obsessed with finding him to the detriment of her relationship with Owen.
I know all the leads have dried up, but Joel's still out there, you know?
I know. What can I do?
Let's go back. We can still make training.
In the 4 years leading up to her slaying of Joel, she throws herself into combat with the WLF and, according to Isaac, becomes one of his aces, a top killer of the Seraphite tribe, who they are at war with in Seattle. Joel is not a known entity to her. He is simply a ruthless and deadly killer. He is a ghost lingering in the background, a final boss she must prepare for. In my opinion, the fighting, the working out, is all an effort to make sure that when she finally meets Joel again, she will not be physically overpowered by him like so many of her comrades were. This even plays into her playing style compared to Ellie. She is an absolute wrecking ball, proficient in snapping necks and boxing. While Ellie relies on sheer emotion and a desire to survive to overcome her foes, Abby does it with a soldier's precision and overwhelming strength. Her training for Joel makes her unstoppable, with her overpowering Jesse, Dina, Tommy and Ellie in Day 3 of Seattle. There is also criticism of Abby being poorly written because the anti-SJWs didn't get to live out their revenge fantasy by killing her in the game's conclusion. It never ceases to amaze me how dense these types of people are, how you could play through Abby's story and actively want to kill her by the end because she killed a man who murdered her father. Let's weigh it up, shall we? Abby kills Joel for killing her father. She lets Ellie and Tommy live. In comparison, Tommy kills her best friend Manny, Ellie kills Nora and a pregnant Mel, as well as Abby's best friend and ex-lover Owen. She kills them just because they are part of Abby's crew, despite Owen being the one to save her. In contrast, Abby not only lets Ellie live once, but she lets both Ellie and Dina live after she has the opportunity to kill them both. Abby is not a moral character, but she's hardly the bad guy. Abby thought killing Joel would fill the void left by her father's death, but it doesn't. Mel, Owen and Abby herself don't feel right with the manner in which they killed him, and Abby seeks to make peace with herself by doing right by both Yara and Lev.
You may fall for your little act with these kids, but I don't. There's nothing to fall for. Isaac's top scar killer suddenly had a change of heart. Nothing to do with Owen, right? I haven't always done the right thing. You're a piece of shit, Abby. You always have been.
Abby finally sees that revenge does not make her feel better, and does not take further revenge on the crew from Jackson. Not only this, but Abby does the exact same thing Joel does when she kills her comrades from the WLF to save her adopted child Lev, like how Joel killed the Fireflies to save Ellie. So listen to this critique from a particularly stupid anti-SJW called Geeks and Gamers.
Once Abby kills Joel, you are very angry at Abby. And at that point in time, the payoff is, through this long story, through this journey, you want to kill Abby. You want to see Abby suffer. You want to see her suffer bad. It's a simple little thing in storytelling that should not be complicated. After the journey is over and she finally reaches Abby, after the audience has been forced to play as Abby through this game at time, finally Ellie reaches Abby. Abby is not in a good place. She's not physically ready to even challenge Ellie, but they fight. They fight, and eventually Ellie lets her walk free. You let Joel's killer walk free. This is awful. This is terrible storytelling.
Again, this shows that anti-SJWs can't see past their ridiculous attachments to characters they might have grown up with. Yes, Abby killed Joel, an immensely complex character who was living on borrowed time. Since then, she spared Dina and Ellie and risked her life multiple times to save two people she should not have. She makes amends for her actions, in my opinion. In The Last of Us world, she shows examples of more virtuous qualities. By the end of the game, with Ellie in her homestead, I felt like Dina. I did not want Ellie to go after Abby. But like many gamers, Ellie could not let it go, despite all of us knowing that Joel would not want her to die in pursuit of revenge. Only at the end does Ellie realise this cycle of revenge is not worth it, and it's not what Joel would have wanted. Abby may have robbed Ellie and Joel of a future as they seem to be pushing for a type of reconciliation, but Ellie learns that robbing Lev of Abby would just hurt someone just as bad as she'd been hurt, and continue the pain and destruction that revenge causes.
Go. Just take him.
Abby is a wonderfully written character, and although she commits the cardinal sin of killing Joel, it's not like she wasn't justified, and it's not like she does not make something of her pain afterwards.
For a long time,
I didn't understand why he was questioning the laws, the traditions. When he explained to me how he felt inside, I told him he had to keep it to himself. I was hoping he'd snap out of it. He seemed fine for a while. But then he shaved his head. Like one of the men. It was suicide.
So to circle this back to part 1, many anti-SJWs were pissed that the game would focus on a gay relationship, and they were extremely pissed when they thought Abby was going to be a transgender woman. Of course this is nothing new. If you check out my previous videos on anti-SJW stuff, they are always complaining that this type of representation is forced diversity and games should stay apolitical. But another thing they often say is that they want diversity done right. Of course I don't mean this because I feel Last of Us does diversity right. On the Ellie and Dina relationship, there's literally one part where someone says something bigoted to them.
Hey! This is a family event.
Sorry. Sorry.
Remember next time there's kids around.
Yeah, like you're setting such a great example.
Oh, just what this town needs. Another loudmouth dyke.
The fuck did you just say?
Ellie, Ellie, don't.
Get the hell out of here.
Get your hands off me.
This person is forced to apologise, and that's as far as this political message goes. I also find it ironic that anti-SJWs don't realise that to normal people, they look like the old man in this scenario. Other than that, the Ellie and Dina relationship is pretty standard and does not even promote it as something amazing for the gaming industry or the world of The Last of Us. But as we know, the simple inclusion of LGBT characters is a bold political statement to reactionaries, the same way minority representation is often seen. This also expands to the Lev storyline. While the 2013 entry into the Last of Us franchise might have pushed the boundaries at the time with a teenage lesbian relationship in gaming, it's safe to say that The Last of Us does something similar with a 13-year-old transgender teenage boy. I personally feel they do a good job in weaving his identity into the storyline. Lev was born a female and was known as Lily in the Seraphite tribe. He was promised to a village elder in marriage but wanted to be a soldier like his sister. He came out as trans to his sister Yara, who did not understand and urged him to reconsider before Lev shaved his head, which is a capital offence for a Seraphite woman. This caused both Yara and Lev to flee before Yara is captured and beaten with a hammer, which leads to their chance encounter with Abby. Abby and Lev talk about his identity, and Abby talks to Yara about his past, but other than that there is no bold political agenda here. The Last of Us Part 2 is not about transgender or gay rights. These people simply exist in this world as they do in the real world. Sure, in Lev's case it's a significant part of his backstory, but it is not the main part of his overall story. His relationship with Abby is. It shows that anti-SJWs cannot even be consistent in their criticism, as the use of LGBT characters in this game fits their definition of representation done right. If anything makes clear the inherent bigotry found in anti-SJW reactionaries, it's their reaction to The Last of Us Part 2. A reaction so severe the mere representation of LGBT characters and a physically strong female character causes them to review bomb the game. So severe it causes them to send death threats to Abby actress Laura Bailey because her character killed Joel, and sending more death threats to creator Neil Druckmann. Anti-SJWs pretending they're anything other than conservative bigots is ridiculous due to this visceral reaction, made even more ridiculous by their failure to either recognise LGBT representation in the first game, or the failure to understand basic narratives that exist in video games like The Last of Us. Speaking to friends who largely exist outside the internet space, it is refreshing they simply enjoyed the game because it was a good game. They weren't outraged by it or had any problem with the minority representation, and I think this is a good indicator of how much anti-SJWs are just a vocal minority who exist online. The Last of Us Part 2 has gone on to sell insanely well in the West and has rightly received praise of general audiences and video game critics. In my mind it is clear anti-SJWs are just typical reactionary conservatives in the vein of Jordan Peterson, who will be looked back on with disgust in the years that follow, and the ridiculous controversy around this game will just be noise that fades into the background. So that is the end of the video essay. Please let me know what you guys think in the comments. Please like the video, please subscribe to the channel. I'm so close to hitting 10k and it would really mean a lot to me. So yeah, subscribe, maybe share the video, maybe get someone else you know to subscribe. If you want to follow me on social media, follow me at TheQuartering on mainly Twitter, but also Facebook and Instagram. Reddit is a big one for me as well, so r/TheQuartering for my subreddit, u/Tommy Cahill for my personal Reddit. WordPress and my Patreon are in the description, and if you made it this far, thank you for watching.